parents say. But you know when you're a kid, you hear your parents say something, and it makes no sense at all. But for some reason, it just becomes a habit. You hear it all the time, and then you find yourself, when you're a little older, you say it as well. You still don't know what it means, but you just know you're still saying it as well. And your parents, they tend to speak in riddles. Little things, they answer questions you never asked. Things like, money doesn't grow on trees. As if for the longest time growing up, that's where I thought. I thought I could take a £5 note, plant it, and NatWest would spring up, you know, for the longest time. And my dad had to tell me, no, money doesn't grow on trees. It was never a question for me. My dad used to help me understand money in that sense as well, saying, I'm not made of money. I thought, good, we're ruling out a good number of things here. Doesn't grow on trees, you're not made of it, we're getting closer. I had no idea where money came from growing up. Just a difficult confusion. Well, you know, do your parents ever say to you, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you? You all hear that one? Yeah. It didn't make sense to me. I used to want to argue and go, well, why have they jumped? Because I know my friends. Is something chasing them? Maybe I would. I don't know. If you saw all your friends just jump off a bridge, you'd be looking around and maybe. Is there water at the bottom? I wanted to question it. I thought it's such an odd expression that we use. And then there's the classic, patience is a virtue. We all heard this one? Patience is a virtue. The most commonly cited of all virtues, I think, by parents. Patience is a virtue, which is very, very true. Patience is indeed a virtue. It was mainly practiced by those waiting for me. It was a brilliant thing. Anyone who's ever waited for a response to one of my emails, they have grown in the act of patience. They understand what a virtue it is now. You learn from parents, you learn very quickly. They're very happy to say patience is a virtue until you're about 5 minutes late to be out the door. Then all of a sudden, that's gone. So now, wisdom is moving quickly all of a sudden. We abandon that idea. But those sayings stick, they happen. I find them constantly say, to Obadiah especially, I'll put aside and say, patience is a virtue. And the first time you do it, you recognize, you stop and go, I'm one of them. You realize you've just sort of become your parents. It's crazy. And the harsh reality is we all grow up, we all think, I won't do that. Well, that's such a strange thing mum and dad do. And then you end up just doing it yourself. You can't help but just become very much like your parents. We'll all possess those qualities that we've seen, both good and bad. And for me, though, I never liked the idea of raising my voice at my kids. Because I remember my dad used to raise his voice at us, which wasn't terrible. I think we winced at that kind of thing a lot these days. But I thought it was really helpful. Because depending on how loud he shouted, you knew what your response needed to be. If it was just lightly raised, you could argue your point, you could negotiate a bit. If it was a very raised voice, this was a lecture, you sat and took notes. You weren't there to argue. And you knew, due to volume, it was very helpful. But I remember thinking, I don't ever want to shout at my kids. I don't think I ever shouted at Obi until Darcy came along, which says more about her than it does about me as a parent, I think. But I thought, I don't want to be that parent that shouts. I didn't want to be. And then, all of a sudden, you just sort of get to that point. It just happens. You fall into those traps. You find yourself shouting, But being a parent, I think I learned more about God's love for us when I became a dad than any other time. That first time I held my son, I think I knew more of God's love in that moment than ever before. Even if you've never had a child, that idea of a parent-child dynamic, there's something profound in it. You understand a love that goes beyond logic. You understand a love that's sacrificial. You understand a love that seeks to protect, but also has to sacrifice to the world. And then when they grow up a little bit and start answering back, you learn of the wrath of God. And you learn that you want to get that out there too. All of a sudden those plagues make complete sense. But people shape us when we grow up, they shape us, and we can't help but be shaped by others around us. Grandparents were a perfect example of this. I adored my granddad growing up. I absolutely adored my granddad. If you think about it, a dad should be, for a child, Superman. Your dad is a Superman. If it all goes correctly, dad's Superman, dad's amazing. And granddad is the person Superman goes to for advice. There's something powerful about that. Granddad is amazing. Granddad's great. Granddad has that authority, has that wisdom, he has that love, but he doesn't need to tell you off as much as dad does. But grandparents are important. They don't tell you off in the same way. I feel very called to be a grandparent. just got to get through this bit first. But my granddad, loved my granddad. I idolise my granddad in so many ways. I wear a suit a lot of the times because of how my granddad used to. And I glean a lot from that. I know I do. But I would always trust my granddad. I remember once I was around at his house. I was looking after us one day. And he's in the spare room looking at this picture. I look at it with him. I said, "What's this?" He goes, "This is a very important photograph. It's a picture of your great-great-great-granddad." I'm thinking, it's incredible. What history here. And he was telling me all about my great-great-granddad. It's fantastic. My dad turned up a little bit later. And he said, "What have you been up to?" I said, "Granddad has shown me a picture of great-great-great-granddad." "Where's this?" I said, "It's in the spare room. It's in the spare room." When I said, "You're an idiot. That's a painting of a Native American." And I was like, no, that's great-great-great-granddad. Yeah. It became very difficult when I was studying history to tell the other children that the white man stole our land. But yeah, I believe my granddad. Didn't want to argue with him. So I believe anything you tell me. Granddads have that gift. They can tell you all sorts of things. You just accept it. I remember once my granddad looked upset in a room and I went over and said, "What are you up to, Granddad?" He said, "Grandma's making me get rid of my surfboard." "You have a surfboard?" I said, yeah, Grandma, I used to surf all the time, little Blayze, but a bit too old now. I don't get to go out on the waves as much as I once did. It's incredible. I'm picturing him there in a wetsuit, navigating these waves. And he said, "Would you like my surfboard? Because I can't use it. Would you like my surfboard?" I said, yes, I would. And he got it out, and I was there practicing my moves on this surfboard. It's fantastic. I'm going to be a surfer like my granddad. And my dad comes and said, "Granddad has given me his old surfboard." My dad knows that my granddad's never surfed in his life. But I'm convinced, telling him, my granddad's surfboard is now mine. And I bring my dad and said, "Look, this is now my surfboard." And my dad had to try and convince me that it was the headboard for a bed. But no, in my mind, this was a surfboard. My surfboard. You believe these things, you take them on. You can't help but, take that to the sea. You don't look much like a surfer. You look like Tom Hanks in Castaway. It's not a good sight. But you can't help but take on what family give you. You end up acting like your mum and dad. You end up using their language. You end up following the example of those. And when my granddad passed away, it was just before Darcy was born. I remember I spoke at his funeral. I remember saying, it's heartbreaking to think that Darcy and Margot especially will never even have met him. But there was something of the idea of every time they see my dad do certain things, they're actually seeing my granddad. Every time they see me do certain things, they're actually seeing my granddad. That lasting thing that goes through us. And you can see the loved one through the person. And that's what you get in a home. That's an ideal sense of a home. You look at a person who came from a loving home. I know it's not everyone, but you see that, you should be able to look at them, and through them, you should be able to see their home environment. A place of love, a place of comfort, a place of fun. It's a place of security. If I actually want to think of where is home, and I don't just mean where you live, but where was home for you? You might have different ideas. It might be when you were much younger, it might be where you're living now. It might be a childhood home, it might be where you go for Christmas. It's somewhere where it's more than just safety, it's where love abounds. It's where loved ones are around you, it's where you've grown in certain ways. And that feels like home. It's more than a location, it's more than bricks and mortar, it's something profound. So when Jesus says to us in John 14, "I've got to prepare a place for you," I'm inviting you to a home. It's not just that I'm inviting you to a location that has your name and address on it, that you go, "Oh, that's where I live, that's where I want my post, that's where I want my taxes coming through." No, it's something far more profound, and this is where love will abound. This is where you'll find your security, this is where you'll find your growth. When you follow me in your life, people should be able to look through you and see your home. We're told in the scriptures that we are not of this world. And it's so true. The idea that people look at us, they see something a little different. They look at us and they go, "You're just not how you should be. You don't react the way you should. You don't act the way you should. You don't prioritize the things the world prioritizes." And we should be able to turn around and go, "That's because that's not my home." You should see that through someone. You see someone's home, you see someone's loved ones when you interact with someone. It's always wonderful when you meet your friend's family. And they'll say things, you go, "Oh, that's where you get it from. That's where you go, oh, I see the looks that you've got. I see where you get that from." And it's all passed down. It's a beautiful thing. Of course, Peter goes on about the idea of spiritual milk. He's not saying that we should be immature or childlike in that sense, but rather, if you've ever had a baby or seen a baby, they couldn't care less about what they're wearing. They couldn't care less about what bedtime is, what wake-up time is. They don't really care about all these other things. They don't care about coming to the front of church and announcing they've had a poo. It doesn't bother them. But they care very deeply about where the milk's coming from. Whether they're bottle-fed or breastfed, they care very deeply about where the provision is, where the loving relationship is that's going to provide for them in that moment. They're single-minded. And Paul has a similar idea when he talks to Timothy later in the scriptures, but Peter has this idea of saying we should seek Christ that way. We should seek the Father in heaven the same way an infant seeks the milk, the sustaining milk that grows them and leads them to the person they're going to be. Likewise, we prioritize that, and we seek the Father in the knowledge that we will grow in salvation. Peter tells us through the stone that was rejected, that is now the cornerstone. We become living stones. People see our home by looking through us. In John 14, it's often a passage for a funeral, sadly. Not sadly, it's not a passage, but it speaks of so much more than just what happens after we die, but so much more of what it means to be a Christian in this world. It starts, that first verse there in chapter 14, believe in God. Almost at the central teaching point, this edict, this demand of Christ there is believe in God. All else will stem from there. First, you must have belief. Believe in God. And then, of course, it goes, in my house there are many rooms, which is a strange sort of phrase to have. The idea we're all under one same building, but many have argued, saying, oh, so is there going to be a literal building? Am I going to get to heaven and find I have an address? We're all in one big mansion together. You know, Lawrence's idea, or some of us further away from God, some closer. There's a few theories out there. But the actual Greek, if you take the word that's used for rooms, it actually translates better as abiding. So that idea of, I go for a place where you will abide in me. You will abide in me. And of course, it's very scriptural. We see that in John 14, verse 23. It says, abide in me, one true vine image. Jesus carries on that sentiment. This idea of where you go, you will abide in me. You will have a home in me. And Philip does the obvious thing. He says, well, Lord, let's see it. Show us. Show us God in some sense. Show us what we're going to see. Show us what's coming. We'll know them. Because Jesus is saying, you know where I'm going. Philip's being very honest. He goes, well, do we? Show us a bit more. Show us this God that we're going to be in. And we'll know a bit more. And it's not a difficult thing to, well, I say difficult, it's not an unusual thing to ask for. Moses asks for a vision of God in Exodus 33 and 24. And he sees this very limited vision of God. Isaiah asks for a vision of God and sees a vision of God. Ezekiel gets a vision of God. It's not an unusual thing as far as the Old Testament is concerned. And yet Christ goes into this idea, which stems from his I am statements, the 6th out of the 7 I am statements in John, where it says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. And Jesus says, you've seen me. You don't need those signs. You don't need those visions. It's a great example of how the New Testament takes a new theology. Instead of it being, yes, we're in the Old Testament, yes, you need a vision of God so you know who God is. Jesus says, you don't need that anymore. You've got me. I'm here. You want to see a vision of God? Look no further than who stood in front of you. You want to know what God is doing? Think of what I've done. Think of my actions. And the words used there doesn't suggest it's just talking about miracles, but think of the teachings I've said. Think of the actions I've done, the miracles that have occurred, the normal conversations. Think of those things. You have seen God. You don't need what they used to need, because you're blessed far more. You are abiding in me. You have your home in me. And then you have that tremendous idea in verse 12, which used to quite, even in this Bible, I've got a little exclamation mark trying to think about what it means, where it says, truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these he will do. That's a baffling statement. Jesus healed the sick, he cured those who had leprosy, he welcomed in society those who were excluded, he raised people from the dead. And Jesus in this chapter says, you'll do even greater things. it makes you reflect as a church, going, well, what should we look like? What should be the reputation of a church? Not just on a national scale, but as Wesley Methodists, what would our reputation be if the idea was that we exceed what Christ has done? And I think a lot of people have been crushed under the weight of such a verse, thinking, well, we're not doing those things, so we must be failing in some way. But I don't think that is what Jesus is saying. I think Jesus is talking about the limited state that he's in. And I might be wrong, I'm happy to disagree with him this one. But I think what Jesus is saying, when you go out, when you are finally commissioned to go out, which is what we see in Acts, the disciples finally going out the upper room, being commissioned to do their own ministry after Christ. I think Christ is openly talking about the idea of when you do that, you'll do it in light of the victory of the cross. What I do now, Jesus teaches on there in John 14, is before the cross. Before the victory over death, before the victory over sin, before the price has been paid. Jesus says, when you minister, it'll be in light of something greater. It'll be after the victory of the cross. And it won't just be for those who can open their eyes and see me, it'll be for all those who have the Holy Spirit, which cannot be localized to one area. By that knowledge, if we think about what's going on, maybe if there's a wonderful church in the Holy Land doing some amazing works, that's brilliant. We might go, they're doing great things. The fact that we can also do great things here, that we've spanned the globe with the teachings of Christ, suggests that even greater things have happened. The fact that we can preach Easter to a world that Christ couldn't in that moment because it had not happened yet, that is a greater story. It's the greatest story. And Jesus gets down to that point at the end, another very challenging verse, where he says, I'm going to Father, whatever you ask in my name, this I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask me anything in my name, I will do it. Another verse I think has crushed a good many Christians who pray for many things. I heard a podcast recently, Kanye West, if you know him, the rapper, he became very prolific for becoming a very outspoken Christian, started doing all sorts, saying I'm a born-again believer in Christ, believe very much in Jesus, and then he went off the rails. He started being very anti-Semitic, he started being very awful to people, and not being very popular. And I was listening to a podcast where they had friends of his on the podcast asking what happened to him. And they said, the time he gave his life to Christ, his marriage was breaking down. And he prayed continuously that his marriage would be saved. And it wasn't. They still broke up. And these people who were close to him were saying, I think he was disenfranchised when his prayer wasn't answered. I think a lot of people, knowingly or unknowingly, live under a theology of that one verse. Ask in my name, I'll do it. And we pray for things, and when they don't happen, we think, I've lost my home. I've lost my protection. I've lost my sustenance. Where's God? We look at Jeremiah 29:11, it goes, I have plans for you to prosper, and we sit there in a dark space and go, where are you? Why isn't my prayer being answered the way I've asked for it? And yet Jesus is talking, the context of everything there is that when you abide in me, when you are in me, then. When you believe, then. What Jesus is saying is when you ask for it in my name, then it will happen. I know the morals and the things that my parents raised me with. I know what my granddad raised me with. When I went round in school misbehaving and so like that, saying, oh, I'm doing this in my dad and granddad's name, people would try to go, you're not doing those things in their name because they wouldn't approve. That's not in their name at all. Likewise, Jesus is saying, when you ask for something that is of me, when you seek something that is of me and the Father, then it will happen. It never says, whatever your whims, your desires may be, pray for those and you'll get them. The whole passage, what comes right before this as well, is Jesus telling Peter, you're going to deny me. This is a warning after this. You will deny me, but seek to abide in me. Seek to do my will over anyone else's. It's an exclusive verse. That I am statement is a very exclusive verse. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. In a politically correct world, we often wince at such a verse and suggest, the only way to God is through Christ. No other way. God alone, through Christ. And we struggle with that idea of exclusivity. Even Peter, when he talks about the living stones, he says, you've been chosen. Your race, your people, you have been chosen. It's an exclusionary language. You have been chosen. And we struggle with that. We do, because we believe in inclusivity, quite rightly. But we think of it in the wrong way. It's not an exclusivity that says no one's welcome. An exclusivity of I've chosen you even though I didn't have to. When people get married, listen to the vows that they make. When they're making their vows, they say they reject all other people. It's a very exclusive practice. The vows are encouraging you to go, I'm rejecting everybody else because I love you. It's a very exclusive thing. And we don't sit at a wedding which, how high and mighty are these people? Rejecting everyone else. Not very inclusive. It's not. It's very exclusive. The husband and wife say, I reject everybody else because I have a love for you. Likewise, that edict to the start, believe in God. If you do, you are my people. And I reject all else because I have a love for you. A love that isn't deserved. Nobody starts a marriage by going, you're going to marry me because I deserve it. It's not going to be a lasting marriage anyway. But the idea, it's a full giving love. Christ saying, believe in God and you're my people. And it's an exclusive thing. If you don't want that relationship, you will not be forced. But God offers us that home. And we build it here. It's part of the Lord's Prayer on earth as it is in heaven. Build your kingdom. We seek to be those living stones that when people look at us, they see our home, they see heaven. They look at us, they see something different, they see something familiar, they see something secure. They see us seeking that sustaining milk, clinging to a rejected stone that is now history's most revered individual. The undesirable becoming undeniable. And they see something different. So many people, even in this church, won't name them, but even in this church, people come to me, their family members, and they'll say, they just feel comfortable here. I don't know what it is, it feels like a home. And they don't know what they're saying. I probably don't want to say it. The idea you found a home. And when we seek God in that way, we seek that sustaining milk, the idea that we're seeking our Father in heaven so we become more like Him. So when people look at us, they don't just see our loved ones that have gone before us, who are all very important. They see something of Christ in us. That's a wonderful message. We live in the light of Easter, we live in the light of communion. The idea we've sought that sustenance. We've been welcomed to that home that spans generations. And we go out ready to welcome others home. We celebrate when people die. Just such an odd thing to do. But we celebrate that they've gone home to a place we all desire to go eventually. We might be a bit nervous about how we get there, but ultimately we all want to be there. It's an odd religion that celebrates a death like that. It's such a wonderful one. I did an end of life visit a week or two ago now, and it was a beautiful thing. I sat reading the Bible to him for a little bit. He wasn't really there, but his wife came. She was in another hospital that got transferred over, and she went up to him. All the family were there, and she just sang, "Breathe on me, breath of God." And it was beautiful. She had to go before he passed. Sadly, she had to go back to hospital for her medication, and she said goodbye to him. And she left a bit weary, but she was saying to him he was going home, and that she'd see him soon. And it was beautiful. I found myself weirdly jealous of this dying man, thinking that's what I want. I want to go that way. I want to go home knowing that's where I'm going. Knowing my loved ones will see me there soon. The Bible is such a deep text when we let it be that way.